The wind howled outside, but inside the dimly lit study, Jack's mind raced as his fingers traced the old journal's cracked leather cover. He had stumbled upon this artifact after months of searching, hidden deep in a forgotten library. The pages whispered of a legend, one that had intrigued him since childhood. The Loch Ness Monster. A creature of myth, dismissed by many as nothing more than folklore. But the pages held details that no one had dared to publish, descriptions of sightings, strange occurrences, and cryptic messages. As Jack flipped through the pages, his pulse quickened. What if the monster wasn't just a myth? What if something truly lived in those murky waters? The lines between fantasy and reality began to blur as he read, unaware that this discovery would pull him into a world of secrets, danger, and truths buried deep beneath the surface. The following morning, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that he was on the verge of uncovering something monumental. The journal had shown him a glimpse of the unknown, something ancient and powerful. Yet, despite his growing excitement, doubt lingered in his mind. Was it possible? Could the Loch Ness Monster truly exist, hiding in the depths of the Scottish Highlands for centuries? He sat down at his desk again, the journal open in front of him, but his thoughts kept drifting to one question: who would believe him? The world had long since dismissed the legend as myth. But Jack couldn't ignore the evidence he had found. The cryptic messages, the old photographs, and the mysterious map all pointed to one place: Loch Ness. With the dawnlight streaming through the window, he knew what he had to do next. He had to go there, to the heart of the mystery, and find out if the truth was as strange as the legends. Jack's mind was racing. The more he read, the more questions emerged. The ancient journal was a puzzle, each page another clue in a complex mystery. But with every new discovery, the weight of what he was about to pursue grew heavier. The Loch Ness Monster was more than just a creature. It was a story that had been buried for centuries. But why? The answer eluded him, wrapped in secrecy and silence. As Jack gathered his thoughts, the only thing that seemed certain was that this was no longer just about proving a legend. It was about uncovering the truth that so many had tried to hide. The phone on his desk suddenly buzzed, snapping him from his reverie. It was a message from an anonymous number. "If you want the truth, meet me at the pier. Midnight. Don't bring anyone." The hairs on the back of his neck stood up. Who was this? And how did they know what he was investigating? There was no turning back now. Jack grabbed his coat, the journal clutched in his hand, ready to confront whatever awaited him. Midnight. Wow. Jack stood at the edge of the pier, the dark waters of Loch Ness stretching out before him. The full moon cast an eerie glow over the lake, making the water shimmer with a silvery sheen. He glanced nervously around, expecting anyone to appear. But the only sound was the gentle lapping of the waves against the pier. His heart raced. Was this some kind of trap? He turned around to leave, but a shadow moved behind him. Looking for answers? A voice called from the darkness. Jack froze, his pulse quickening. A figure stepped forward, cloaked in a dark jacket. The figure's face was obscured by shadows, but Jack could tell they were older, with a weathered look that hinted at years of experience. "Who are you?" Jack demanded, stepping back slightly. The figure smiled. "I know what you're looking for and I can help you. For a price." The figure's voice was low and measured, with an almost predatory quality to it. "You're not the first to search for the truth about Loch Ness. Many have come before you, and many have disappeared, never to be heard from again." Jack took a step forward, his eyes locked on the stranger. "What do you know?" he asked, his voice steady but filled with urgency. The figure smiled darkly. "What I know could ruin you. The truth you seek is far darker than you could imagine. There's a reason they want it kept hidden." Jack's mind raced, the weight of the words sinking in. "Who are they?" he asked, but the figure only chuckled. "That's a question you'll have to answer yourself, if you're brave enough to find out." With a final glance at Jack, the figure turned and melted into the night, leaving Jack alone with more questions than answers. He stood there, staring at the lake, now feeling the full weight of the mystery he had begun to unravel. But he couldn't turn back now. The path was set, and there was no going back. The next morning, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. Every glance over his shoulder seemed to confirm it. He had made a decision the night before. He couldn't do this alone. But he still needed help. He thought back to the reluctant ally whose warning had stuck with him. Emma had been right to be cautious. This was no simple mystery, and the deeper Jack dug, the more dangerous it became. But he couldn't turn back. He needed answers. Jack made a quick call. He couldn't waste time. Emma, it's Jack. I need your help. I know you said no, but I've uncovered something. Something big. Meet me at the cafe in an hour. It's important. As he waited, Jack paced around his apartment, his mind racing with possibilities. What was Emma going to say? Would she help, or would she turn him away again? Jack waited in the cafe, his coffee long cold as he stared out the window. He could see the mist rising from Loch Ness in the distance, a constant reminder of the mystery he was chasing. When Emma walked in, her presence was a stark contrast to the quiet tension in the air. She was wearing a dark green jacket and jeans, her short brown hair slightly messy from the wind outside. She looked at Jack with skepticism, but there was a flicker of curiosity in her eyes. "So what's so urgent?" she asked, sitting down across from him. Jack could tell she was still hesitant, but he wasn't about to back down. He slid the journal across the table, and Emma's eyes widened. "You're serious about this, aren't you?" she said quietly, picking up the journal. "What are you asking me to do?" Jack leaned forward, his voice barely above a whisper. "Help me find the truth. We can't do this alone." Jack and Emma spent the next few hours poring over the journal. They reviewed the maps, notes, and illustrations, piecing together the puzzle that Jack had started. Emma's expertise in history was invaluable, and soon they were uncovering more details than Jack had anticipated. But as the day wore on, Emma grew more uneasy. She kept glancing toward the door, as if expecting someone to burst in at any moment. "Jack, I don't know about this," she finally said, her voice tinged with worry. "We're digging into something much bigger than we imagined. Whoever wrote this, they were trying to hide something, and I'm starting to wonder if they succeeded." Jack met her gaze, his face grim. "That's exactly why we need to keep going." But Emma wasn't convinced. "What if someone's watching us? What if you're not supposed to know the truth?" Jack's eyes hardened. "Then we find out why they wanted to keep it hidden." That night, Jack and Emma traveled to the loch. The weather had turned cold, and the air felt heavier the closer they got to the water. The lake, usually calm and serene, now appeared foreboding in the dim light of the moon. Emma was silent as they stood at the edge of the shore, gazing across the water. "This is where it all started, isn't it?" she asked quietly, her voice barely audible over the sound of the waves. Jack nodded, feeling the weight of their discovery pressing on his chest. The journal had mentioned something about a hidden location near the loch, a place where the true story of the Loch Ness Monster had been concealed for generations. He knew they were close. As they stood there in the chill of the night, Jack could sense they were on the edge of uncovering something that could change everything. But the deeper they went, the more dangerous the path ahead would become. The night passed in a blur as Jack and Emma continued to search for any clues near the lake. They found an old stone structure, partially hidden by overgrown vines and moss. It looked ancient, as though it had been abandoned for centuries. Emma ran her fingers over the cold stone, her voice trembling as she spoke. This could be it. This is where the journals mentioned. The secret place they've been hiding all this time." Jack stepped forward, examining the markings on the stone. "It's a map. A hidden trail." He pulled out the journal again, comparing it with the carvings. "This is it. We're on the right path." Emma looked at Jack with a mix of awe and fear. "But what happens when we find what we're looking for?" Jack's gaze hardened, determination flooding his veins. "Then we'll uncover the truth, no matter the cost." The tension between Jack and Emma had been growing since their discovery by the lake. Jack knew there were forces out there trying to keep the truth about the Loch Ness Monster hidden. But it wasn't just the shadowy figure from the pier who was watching them. Jack had a nagging feeling that someone close to him might be hiding something. As they sifted through old documents and photographs in Jack's apartment, Emma hesitated. "There's something off about all of this, Jack. We've been digging too deep. I just don't trust the people who've come before us," she said, her voice laced with concern. Jack tried to calm her, but the unease in her eyes was hard to ignore. "We're not backing down now. We're close to something, Emma. We can't let fear stop us." Just as Jack said this, a knock at the door interrupted their conversation. The visitor was unexpected. Thomas, a former colleague of Jack's, someone he had trusted. But when Jack opened the door, Thomas was different. His eyes were cautious, and his usual warmth was replaced with a cold, calculating demeanor. "Jack," Thomas said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. "You've been asking questions you shouldn't." Jack was caught off guard by the sharpness in Thomas's voice. The warmth that had once defined their friendship had evaporated, replaced by something darker. "I don't know what you're talking about," Jack replied, trying to remain composed. Emma, who had been sitting at the table, stood up and exchanged a wary glance with Jack. "Who is he?" she asked, her voice tinged with suspicion. "Thomas. He's an old friend," Jack said, though he could tell Emma wasn't convinced. Thomas glanced around the apartment, his eyes landing on the journal Jack had been studying. "You've been looking into the wrong things, Jack. There are things you don't understand, things better left buried." The air grew thick with tension. Jack stood firm. "I'm not stopping. I need the truth." Thomas's lips curled into a thin smile, his eyes cold and calculating. "Then you'll regret this," he said before turning and leaving without another word. Jack's mind raced after Thomas left. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. He had trusted Thomas once, but now it seemed as though his old friend had betrayed him. Who was he really working for? Jack wondered aloud, pacing back and forth. Emma, still in shock, shook her head. "He wasn't just trying to warn you. He was threatening you. There's more going on here, Jack, and we're in deeper than we thought." Jack stopped pacing and faced her, his jaw clenched. "I need answers, Emma. I can't back down now." Emma hesitated, but then stepped forward. "All right, let's find out what he's hiding." They decided to return to the archives, to the place where they had uncovered the journal's secrets. As they walked through the night, the weight of the situation grew heavier with every step. It wasn't just about the Loch Ness Monster anymore. It was about survival. They needed to uncover the truth before it was too late. At the archives, Jack and Emma pored over more documents and maps, but it wasn't long before they realized they were not alone. A figure stood in the doorway, watching them from the shadows. "I know what you're looking for," the voice said, breaking the silence. Jack turned around sharply, his heart racing. "Who are you?" he demanded. The figure stepped forward, revealing a face Jack had seen only in old photographs. An elderly man dressed in a worn coat, his eyes filled with an unsettling mixture of fear and knowledge. "My name is Gregory," the man said, his voice low and gravelly. "And I'm the one who warned them, but you won't listen, you never do." Jack took a cautious step forward. "Warned them? Who?" Gregory's face twisted with emotion. "The truth about the Loch Ness Monster. It's worse than you think. The creature is not what you believe. It's more dangerous, more powerful than anyone could imagine." Emma looked at Jack, her expression filled with alarm. "What have we gotten ourselves into?" Gregory's words echoed in Jack's mind as they left the archive. The mystery had grown far deeper than they anticipated. "The creature is not what you think," Gregory had said. Jack couldn't shake the feeling that they were only scratching the surface. There were still so many unanswered questions. Emma was silent beside him, her face troubled. "Do you think he's telling the truth?" she asked. Jack's gaze was fixed ahead, his determination unwavering. "I don't know, but we need to find out. Whatever it is, the truth is out there, and we can't let it stay buried." As they continued their journey into the heart of the mystery, they knew that they were being watched. Someone or something was keeping a close eye on their every move. And as the shadows of the night deepened, they realized they were not just uncovering secrets, they were walking into a trap. The following morning, Jack and Emma returned to the loch. They stood at the water's edge, the fog thick and cold, with an oppressive silence hanging in the air. Jack was still reeling from the previous night's revelations. Gregory's words haunted him, leaving a sense of urgency that could not be ignored. "Jack, do you really believe what he said?" Emma asked, her voice quiet, almost lost in the surrounding mist. Jack's eyes stayed locked on the water, the weight of the question pressing down on him. "I don't know, but I can't shake the feeling that we're getting closer to something monumental." Emma stepped closer, her voice trembling slightly. "Jack, whatever this is, it's been hidden for a reason. You're not just unearthing history, you're stirring something that was meant to stay buried." Jack's gaze shifted from the lake to Emma's worried expression. "I don't care if it was meant to stay buried. I need to know the truth. We're too deep now." As they continued along the shore, Emma noticed something unusual. A figure emerged from the mist, walking slowly toward them. It was a woman, with long dark hair and a somber expression. Her presence felt almost ethereal, as though she had stepped out of the fog itself. "Who are you?" Jack called out, his voice echoing over the water. The woman stopped a few feet away, her eyes filled with sorrow and mystery. "I am Anna," she said softly, her voice laced with a quiet sadness. "I have been waiting for you." Jack took a cautious step forward. "Waiting for us? How do you know who we are?" Anna hesitated, her gaze shifting between Jack and Emma. "Because I know what you are searching for," she replied, her voice steady but filled with a deep, haunting pain. "And I know the cost of finding it." Anna led them to an abandoned cabin nearby, nestled among the trees. The wooden structure was old and weathered, its windows boarded up, and the door slightly ajar. Once inside, Anna began to speak in a low, urgent tone. "The truth you seek is dangerous. My family has been tied to the loch for generations. We've watched the creature emerge and retreat, but we've always kept the truth hidden. Not just to protect ourselves, but to protect the world." Jack listened intently. "What do you mean? What truth?" Anna's eyes grew distant as she gazed out of the cabin window, her face stricken with grief. "The Loch Ness Monster is not just a creature. It's a force, a weapon that can change the world. And it's not alone. There are others like it. If this secret is uncovered, it could destroy everything." Emma looked at Jack, her face a mixture of fear and disbelief. "So what are we supposed to do? Turn back?" Anna turned her gaze back to them, her expression resolute. "No, you can't turn back. You've already come too far." As Anna's words sank in, Jack's mind raced. What Anna was saying sounded unbelievable, yet every part of him knew she was telling the truth. "But why are you telling us this?" Jack asked. "Why now?" Anna turned to face them, her eyes full of pain. "Because my family is dying. We can't protect the loch anymore. The creature is waking up, and the others, those who control it, are moving to exploit it." Emma stood up abruptly, pacing across the room. "What do you mean? Exploit it?" Anna's voice dropped to a whisper. "They want to use it as a weapon. The Loch Ness Monster and others like it are not just myths. They are part of something much larger. And if they awaken, the consequences will be catastrophic." The weight of Anna's words hung heavily in the air as Jack and Emma stood in the cold night, trying to process what they had just learned. The creature was not a myth. It was a part of something much darker, something ancient. "We can't just walk away from this," Jack said quietly. "We have to stop them." Emma looked at Jack, her face filled with both fear and resolve. "You're right. But how do we even begin?" Jack's eyes hardened as he gazed toward the loch, its dark waters now seeming even more foreboding. "We start by finding out who they are and stopping them before they wake the rest of the creatures." The next day, Jack and Emma set off for a remote location mentioned in the journal. According to Anna's information, it was a site where ancient rituals were once performed, believed to be connected to the awakening of the creatures. The journey took them deep into the Scottish Highlands, away from civilization, where the land was untamed and wild. The sun was beginning to set, casting a warm golden glow over the hills. But the air was growing colder, the sense of foreboding creeping back. "Do you think we're going to find answers out here?" Emma asked, her voice quiet, almost drowned out by the wind. Jack didn't answer immediately. He wasn't sure. But the journal and Anna's words had led them here, and now they were closer than ever. "We have to, Emma. We're running out of time." As they reached the site marked on the map, the landscape opened up to reveal an ancient stone circle. The weathered stones stood tall against the darkening sky, their surfaces etched with markings that seemed to shift with the light. Jack knelt beside one of the stones, brushing away the moss and dirt. He could barely make out the symbols carved into its surface, but they were unmistakably similar to the markings in the journal. "This is it," Jack said, his voice filled with awe. Emma knelt beside him. "What now?" Jack's gaze was fixed on the stone, as though he could feel something powerful beneath its surface. "Now, we figure out how to activate the ritual." As Jack continued to examine the stone, a faint sound broke the silence, a rustling in the trees behind them. They both turned, their senses heightened. A figure emerged from the shadows, moving towards them with deliberate steps. Jack and Emma immediately recognized the figure. It was the mysterious outsider, the one who had warned them before. "You shouldn't be here," the outsider said, his voice low and cryptic. "This place is not meant for your kind." Jack's hand instinctively reached for the journal, but the outsider raised a hand. "You won't find what you're looking for unless you understand the rituals," he said, his eyes locked on Jack's. "And you won't like what you uncover." Jack's pulse quickened. "Who are you?" Jack and Emma stood frozen as the outsider's cryptic words echoed in their minds. The ritual was their only hope, but the outsider's warning weighed heavily on them. "You don't understand," he said, his voice laced with something ominous. "The power you seek, it's not meant to be controlled. If you unleash it, it will destroy you." Jack clenched his fists, frustration building. "Then tell us what we need to do to stop it. We can't let this go on." The outsider's expression softened for a moment, as though he saw something in Jack's eyes that made him reconsider. "There is a way to stop it, but it will cost you more than you're ready to pay," he murmured. "Are you truly ready for the consequences?" Jack and Emma exchanged a look, the weight of their decision pressing down on them. "We have no choice," Jack replied, his voice determined. "We have to stop this." With the outsider's cryptic clues in mind, Jack and Emma headed toward the site where the ritual was said to take place. As they walked, the weight of the outsider's warning lingered, but they couldn't afford to hesitate. Every step felt heavier as the tension built. The location was a stone structure hidden in the woods, ancient and long forgotten by most. Jack examined the worn stone pillars, each etched with symbols matching those in the journal. He traced them with his fingers, trying to make sense of the ritual that could either save or doom them. Emma stood nearby, her gaze fixed on the surroundings, scanning for any signs of danger. "This is it," Jack said quietly, determination in his voice. "We have to perform the ritual here now. No turning back." Emma nodded, though her eyes reflected the gravity of the decision. "Let's do this." Jack and Emma made their way to a hidden archive beneath an old library in the Highlands. The air was thick with dust and the smell of old paper. There, they uncovered ancient records of experiments conducted on creatures like the Loch Ness Monster. Experiments that tied back to government-funded research. The implications were staggering. Jack's hands shook as he turned the pages. This was bigger than he imagined. The monster wasn't just a myth. It was part of something much darker. "We have to stop them," Jack muttered. As they continued to read, Jack found a chilling report detailing a secret experiment, codenamed Project Leviathan. The experiment was designed to harness the Loch Ness Monster's abilities, its strength, speed, and healing properties, for military purposes. Emma's breath caught. "This was never about discovery," she said. "It's about control." Jack's face darkened as he absorbed the gravity of the situation. "If they can control it," he started, trailing off. The truth was too terrible to ignore. They had to stop the project before it was too late. The deeper they dug, the more they uncovered. As they moved to the next set of records, a hidden door in the back of the room creaked open. The door revealed an underground chamber filled with eerie, lifelike statues of creatures, beasts that resembled the Loch Ness Monster, but far more terrifying. These statues were part of a failed genetic experiment designed to create each super soldiers, using the creature's DNA. Jack felt a chill run down his spine. This isn't just about the monster, he realized. It's about what they've created. A loud crash interrupted their exploration. The floor beneath them trembled, and the lights flickered. "They've found us," Jack whispered. Emma turned to face him, panic rising in her chest. "We need to get out of here, now." The underground chamber was no longer safe. They grabbed the documents and rushed toward the exit, but as they neared the door, a figure emerged from the shadows. The Keeper of Secrets. "You've gone too far," he hissed, his voice cold and menacing. "Now you'll pay the price." Jack and Emma ran as fast as they could, but the Keeper of Secrets was relentless, closing the distance between them. They finally burst through the door and into the cold night air. But as they looked back, the Keeper stood in the doorway, a dark silhouette against the dimly lit entrance. "You can't stop what's coming," he called after them. Jack looked at Emma, his face determined. "We're not finished yet." They had uncovered the truth, but it was only the beginning. The real battle was just beginning. After narrowly escaping the Keeper, Jack and Emma made their way to a remote cabin. The storm was closing in, and the urgency of their situation weighed heavily on them. Jack knew that the Keeper's words held truth. Their journey was far from over. As they sat in the cabin, the reality of the coming confrontation began to set in. "We can't let them wake the creatures," Jack said, his voice filled with resolve. "But we don't even know how to stop them." Emma looked at him, her face determined. "Then we figure it out, Jack. Together." Jack and Emma spent hours researching everything they could about the creatures and the ancient ritual that could potentially stop them. Time was running out. The storm raged outside, mirroring the chaos they were about to face. As the final pieces of the puzzle clicked into place, Emma looked at Jack with wide eyes. "This ritual, it's the only way to stop them, but it's going to be dangerous. Are we ready for this?" Jack met her gaze, his resolve unwavering. "We have no choice, Emma. We've come too far to turn back now." The path to the ritual site was treacherous. As they approached the location marked on the map, Jack and Emma were stopped in their tracks by a figure, the hidden enemy. His smile was cold and full of malice. "You really think you can stop it?" he sneered. "You're out of your depth." Jack stepped forward, his voice firm. "We've come this far. We won't let you win." The hidden enemy chuckled darkly. "You're too late. The ritual has already begun." Emma's eyes widened. "Then we have to stop it, now." The final confrontation was brutal. The hidden enemy had one last trick up his sleeve. He activated the ritual's energy, sending a surge of power into the air. The ground shook, and the waters of Loch Ness began to churn. Jack and Emma fought with everything they had, but it wasn't enough. As the creature began to rise from the lake, Jack knew they were fighting against forces much older and more powerful than they had ever imagined. Emma looked at Jack, fear in her eyes. "What do we do now?" Jack's voice was resolute. "We finish this together." With one final act of courage, Jack and Emma managed to disrupt the ritual, severing the link between the creature and its summoners. As the energy dissipated, the creature sank back into the lake, disappearing beneath the waters. Jack and Emma stood on the shore, their bodies exhausted, their hearts still racing. "We did it," Emma whispered. Jack nodded, but the victory felt bittersweet. The truth had been uncovered, but at what cost? As they looked out over the now calm Loch Ness, they knew their world would never be the same.